don't touch the dots with your finger. Learn to touch them with your intentional gaze. That is how you operate it. And so let's look at some of the specifics of operation. This point, 16, is the log-on point for the Shakti cluster. It's where you always go first when you intend to execute any action or any ritual with the app. 16 represents the anthropos itself. It's the blue point on the console. It represents you, the human species. It represents you individually as a member of the human species who is logging on, knowing that you bring the consciousness of the entire species with you. Knowing also that at the moment you log on, others around the world may also be logging on to the same point. Knowing also that every time someone somewhere in the world logs on to point 16, by self-identification to the Rome or anthropos, they charge that point. And so when you go to it, you benefit and draw upon the charge put into it by everyone else who gazes at that point, with the intention of self-recognition. That point. The jargon for working the Shakti cluster is to log on, or to load, and to conduce. Load and conduce. You load your own mind, your own presence, and all the power of your attention into the device. Unlike an archonic device, which has a battery that expires, unlike an archonic device, which only operates if it's in a field of shortwave radiation, if it's in a field of frequencies where it can tap into the internet, you tap in to the telluric field of the earth, which you are already in, but you tap into it by a deliberate act of loading yourself at point 16. Once you load yourself there, the first operation is to go directly up to point 18, which is the large amber spot. Point 18 represents the navel of the Shakti cluster, and it represents, again, the place where you perform another act of recognition. This other act of recognition is the recognition that the earth is your source. It is the local source of life. It's not the remote source, but it is the local source. Beyond the earth as the local source is the galactic core, the home base of the aeons, and beyond that is the originator. But you get the originator and you get the full presence of the aeons through the presence of the one aeon who is in material immanence in the planet. So there is a second aspect of loading on, which occurs with the intentional gaze at point 18. Intentional means you know what you're looking at when you look at it. You use the intentional gaze all the time. A very common example of the intentional gaze is in the mating of the species. You know, men and women of the human species. You communicate to each other your intentions to mate, to kiss, or to conjugate sexually, or to take a walk together through your look. Someone knows by the way you look at them what you intend to do with them. Likewise, the Aonic mother knows by the way you look at her that you're bringing your intention to her. You know how it works as you're working it. So you can play back and forth between 16 and 18. You don't have to make some kind of woo-woo game out of it. You don't have to make it into an elaborate meditation. It's not meditation. It's dharana, which is contemplation. It's contemplation, not meditation. So you contemplate yourself as Rome here, and you contemplate the planetary animal mother as the source of life here, and play back and forth between the two. That is called loading the app. The power of the app comes from you as you conjoin and merge into the telluric field which gives you life. The power of an archonic device like an Android or a tablet depends on a battery, a Mickey Mouse battery, and some kind of elaborate programming which you can't understand, by which it receives signals from an electrical field which is polluting the entire planet. Okay? Differences are clear? Now, the second step, and the jargon is the same for everyone. Use this jargon, enjoy it. To load and you conduce. Conduce is a word that I made up to replace the word conduct. It actually means to conduct, but I'm going to say conduce. Conduce means to draw, ducere, to draw or flow or merge with, con. The purpose of loading is to conduce. You conduce now the specific frequency indicated by the other 16 points. So once you've logged on and loaded, you go to one of these points, say 1 here, you go to, say, 6 over here, 9 down here, or 13 here, with a specific intention. And that is called conducing, because you are drawing the power of the telluric matrix to you so that you can command her power. The highest desire of the Gaian Dakinis, including Vivi herself, is that you command them by pleasure. You command their power through this console, and you do it in extremely meticulous and specific ways. And part of the delight of using the Shakti Cluster is to know the specific properties and powers that you conduce by each of these points, and to learn over time what specific acts of magic, interactive magic with Gaia, that you can perform through each of these points. Now I want to advise, before I go into an illustration of what some of the points are and what you use them for, that the Shakti Cluster will not work for you if you do not know how it works. I've already made that point very clear. Secondly, it will not work for anyone who is not passionately and soberly engaged in the narrative. You must know the narrative of the Aeon Sophia. You must know her story. You must have that narrative in your mind and carried in your heart, just as you carry the story of your own life. So you carry the story of her life. That is the way that you worship her. You worship the earth by showing her that you know her story, you recognize who she is, and secondly, you recognize who you are in her story, and that is a great and magnificent enduring act of self-love. This is the self-love button, right here, 16. We called it channel 16 in that Gaian navigation experiment because it has telepathic properties. Point 16 in the Shakti Cluster is the switchboard where everybody who uses the Shakti Cluster can receive and send messages from everyone else who is using it. So that is one of the unique properties of point 16, is planet-wide telepathic communication. And there are ways to test that and to see how it works. Telepathy is one of the Akko powers of the magical child, the Rome. You all have innately the capacity for telepathy. Well, let me correct that. It's natural and normal for the human animal to have this capacity if it hasn't been distorted or damaged. And also there are some human beings who have been subjected to such degeneration that they cannot access that faculty. But ideally speaking, the psychic power or siddhi or occult power of telepathy is inherent in the human animal. You want to know how to work the telepathy that you have and how to build it, how to augment it. Use this instrument. Without using this instrument, you will have a very difficult time, first, claiming your power of telepathy, and second, enhancing and augmenting it and raising it to its optimal level of operation. Self-love is necessary for you to operate your telepathic powers. Telepathic powers operate among all animals, all non-human species. So prairie dogs are telepathic with each other. I often use the analogy of prairie dogs for students of planetary tantra. Lions are in telepathy with each other. Dogs are, ducks are. The difference between those species and the human species is that you need the dwell point of self-love and self-recognition as Rome in order to operate your telepathic potential. Okay? So, the condition for this app to work for you is self-love and self-recognition here, recognition of the planetary animal mother, the Aeon Sophia, here, and that includes knowing and loving her story. Anyone who has developed those two features can work this app successfully. So now in the completion of this demo, which ideally would be edited and enhanced by a montage, let me indicate some of the elementary uses of the point frequencies configured in the Shakti cluster. The Charlotte working was a demonstration of the use of point 1, the Kali point, which is also called the kill point or kill spot. So in the Charlotte working, you loaded yourself into point 16. You then united unified your attention between 16 and 18, and you went up directly, vertically, to point 16 and loaded to point 1, and loaded into point 1 the intention of the Charlotte working, which was the intention to eliminate a designated target. And you can always use point 1 for that purpose. Let me add, by the way, a caveat or a disclaimer. Gaian Tantric magic, of which the Shakti Cluster app is a tool, and autogenic magic, which comes with planetary tantra, cannot be used for any personal intentions regarding life and death. That is, you cannot use it to kill anyone for personal reasons. It just won't work. It only works if the target is not known to you physically and is not in any way involved in your personal life. It will not work for acts of personal vengeance or to take out somebody who offended you or harmed you. I must advise that if you are in the unfortunate situation in life where someone harms you, or say, for instance, if you're a father whose daughter has been, raped or molested by a pedophile, and you have the good fortune of actually knowing who the perpetrator is, even in that case, you cannot use the Shakti cluster to eliminate them. In that case, life itself presents you with a personal responsibility to go and take them out. So if there's anyone in your personal reality that you need to take out, you have to go and do it hands-on and flesh and blood. You cannot use the Shakti cluster to do that. You can only use it for a transpersonal hit. All right. I explained in the course of the setting out the Charlotte working how you look at the point of the Shakti cluster where you locate your intention, in that